Hello, fellow Voyagers. Jess here with Odyssey Human, here today to talk about release that need to get stuff and see what happens. Welcome to the channel. This is the place where we help you hack through the jungles of consciousness and discover the hidden treasures inside of you. My friends, everything you want is in there. Everything you'll ever experience is inside of you. It's an inside out job. So if that sounds good to you, please subscribe. We'd love to have you on the channel. And if you haven't already checked out last week's video, I would encourage you to do so. Even if you're not feeling tired and burnt out by manifesting, I always get the side wrong. I think it's the side. The concept presented in last week's video kind of sets the foundation for today, that I think we've all experienced frustration with manifesting, right? Because maybe we're getting it wrong. And I'm starting to realize that a key piece of this that I really want to touch on today is releasing the need to get something. Imagination is king. Imagination is the whole game. Imagination is 90% of our experience. The other 10% is our physical reality. And this comes right from science. So when you watch a little child and you watch when they use their imagination, right? Children will turn to their imagination when they're bored, when they want to have fun, when, it's a lot when they're bored, when they're playing, right? When they're playing just for the hell of it. I remember as a kid, we had this little play set. It was like a little kitchen oven play set, and it was out in the woods. And I just remember baking and baking, but I wasn't really baking. I was making pies out of mud and dirt and sticking them in this little oven. And just the joy of that, the absolute bliss that I felt. I wasn't trying to make real pies come out of that oven using dirt. I was just fulfilling myself through the act of imagination. And I think what happens is, we are told and encouraged as we grow up to let go of that capacity, to let go of that ability to regulate ourselves when we're not, either for playful purposes or when we're not feeling great, right? When we're bored. If you ever watched a kid in a doctor's office, or they'll often turn to their imagination. Suddenly they have they're an astronaut on a spaceship, or when they're playing, right? They use imagination to fulfill themselves, not just for entertainment purposes, but also for self-soothing, for self-rescuing from something really boring in the 3D world, right? Children naturally know how to utilize this natural ability that we have called imagination in these circumstances. And so I think when we grow up and we're encouraged to drop this, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And I kind of want to reintegrate this into my manifestation teachings and remind you of this capacity that you had as a young child. Because when we get into the business of adulting and trying to get stuff and pounding things out in the 3D world, in the physical reality, that 10%, that's where the majority of our suffering comes in. Because when we don't get something right away, when we don't get that instant gratification, or it's taking forever, or it might look like we may never get what we want, that drains our life force. Those are the most painful experiences I have ever had in life, when a dream dies or something that I really wanted goes away, or that is, to me, the pinnacle of human suffering. And I want to ask you that question. Have you experienced it that way too? Is that when you have suffered the most? When your heart really, really, really wants something? And in that 10%, right, we want the evidence of it to show up before we'll allow ourselves in imagination to go there, to fulfill it. So what I want to encourage you to do today is, it may feel natural for you that wanting is a part of this process of manifesting, right? We have the desire come up and we just naturally feel that lack in the absence of the thing. But that's where imagination saves us. That's where imagination helps us self-rescue, self-regulate, find a more peaceful state. Because if we weren't, it's one thing not to see it in that 10%, right? But that's 10% of our experience. It's when we deny ourselves also in the 90% that lack is so pervasive. That lack becomes complete suffering, right? Because we're denying ourselves, because we don't perceive ourselves as having this thing or experiencing this thing in that 10% of physical reality, that we deny ourselves permission to have it in the 90. Don't do that. Don't do that. I really encourage you, because this shift is what has given me so much peace of mind. So much peace of mind and clarity and fulfillment of reclaiming my 90, reclaiming my imagination to fulfill myself, right? When I feel that lack coming up, I realize, oh, I'm denying myself in imagination. When we have negative emotion come up, it is because we are not fulfilling ourselves in imagination. We're not giving ourselves what we want, what our heart needs, what our mind can easily create, right? In the split second. We can create the scene, the feeling, we can touch, taste, smell, hear, the reality that we are wanting. And so my point today is, remember how you used to be as a kid. Remember how you used to use your imagination, and start to reclaim that power. Start to reclaim that power and rescue yourself. Rescue yourself from that suffering, right? The only reason we suffer is because we are bowing down and saying, yes, 10%, you're right. I don't have it. I'm not allowed to have it. And then in this creative space that's all ours, in this intimate place, we're not allowing ourselves to go there. Just fulfill it. Fulfill it. You have it. You have it in there. It is already yours. Why would you deny yourself? Why would you deny yourself? So release the need. Try it. Try it. Release the need for that evidence to show up in the 10%. Release the need. You can always go back to the need to have to see it, to have the proof in the physical reality. You can always go back to that state. But I encourage you, as an experiment, forget what you've learned about manifesting up until this point and start to see it as self-fulfillment. Start to see all these things that you've learned, reframe them through the perspective of, this is a way that I am going to fulfill myself. This is a way that I am going to find greater peace of mind. This is a way that I am going to end my own suffering. I may still forget and suffer a little bit. The other night I was actually laying in bed, and I've started at night, at the end of my day, to kind of just lay in bed and just imagine really awesome stuff. I revise, I just enjoy the act of imagining again. And a couple nights ago, I was feeling crappy, and I caught myself, I kind of stepped into the observer position and caught myself creating a nightmare in my own mind. I was catastrophizing some things that had happened, and we have arguments with people in our mind, and we fight with them, and we try to figure it, our imagination will just run wild if we allow it to create these nightmarish scenarios. And that was exactly what my mind was doing. And I felt it. I felt the emotion of it. I wasn't feeling great. And I witnessed it And in stepping back and witnessing and actually just paying attention to what my emotion was doing, I was able to say like, hey, whoa, whoa, this is my space. I'm reclaiming it. We can let this go. We don't have to create these scenarios. And so I kind of turned the ship around, right? And started to create a dream, more pleasant visualizations. I released that need for that like angsty, tensiony, when we create from these emotional states, or we create and then it creates an emotional state. I let go of that. So again, remember, you always in every moment have this wonderful artist's palette of your mind, of your imagination to draw from, to use, to fulfill yourself, to rescue yourself. I self-rescued in that moment. I decided this isn't how I want to fall to sleep. I want to enjoy my imagination in a childlike way of just enjoying it for the enjoyment of it, not to try to produce something out in physical reality. Because that then creates a power imbalance, right? Where we're then in servitude. We are a slave. I don't want to be a slave, right? I want to be a master. I want to be in control of my lived experience. So, and releasing that need, releasing the need for it to have to show up. It's got to prove itself to you in physicality for you to allow yourself to create in the 90%. No, release that. That could be the last string that is maybe holding back your manifesting ability. So try releasing that. You can always go back to it, right? You can try it for a month or a few weeks or a few days and then return to that kind of old paradigm of thinking. But just try releasing that need for it to show up and watch what happens. Watch what happens with the results that you get. Watch what happens with your overall mental health. Watch what happens with the intimacy you have with yourself to control your imagination and enjoy doing it just for the hell of it. Right? Just for the hell of it, just because it's pleasurable, just because it's fun, just because you're bored or you have a negative emotional state come up and you want to rescue yourself from that. Try using imagination for those reasons and release the need to produce this thing magically into 3D and see what happens. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Let me know when you experiment with it, what happened. I'm happy to engage with you. And as always, I always have a free tool in the description box that teaches you emotional mastery, and it helps you regain control in your 90%, in the 90% of your imaginal space. It is a reconditioning exercise. It's very simple, very easy to use, that you just consistently use, and you will start to take back your power in your mind, in your imagination, with your emotions. It really is how I rescued myself, and I continue to rescue myself and live in fulfillment. So that is always there for you. It's always in the description box of my videos. Check it out. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.